Hope everybody can see me. Hi everybody. I don't know who we have. Who can I see? Oh, I can see Tish, Cindy, Elizabeth, Leslie, Robin, Susan, Anne. What else do we have there? Catherine, Lethargy. Who else? Hello, nice to see everybody. I had a little bit of a delay with some, well, not technical issues, not electronic issues, more like technical issues, just me trying to find the thing that my phone clips to onto the gimbal. I think the processing error was very much there. So a big hello to everybody and welcome to this afternoon's tour. We'll get started in a few minutes, of course. But I'm delighted to have you here with me in Northleach today. Robin, Emma is, well, she's about the same. She's still in hospital as far as I know. She may join the tour today, but I don't know. I think the reception is, the connection is a little bit questionable where she is. So I think she's finding it much easier to watch things on catch up, because then you know, it doesn't really matter if it kind of gets a bit delayed in the download. You just carry on. You've not kind of got behind, if so to speak. So hi Beatrice, hi to everyone. And Beatrice, if you've got that spanner, I think I could do with a bit inside my head, like tighten it up a bit, so I know where I've put the part of my gimbal that I needed. So lovely to see so many of you on this Sunday afternoon. I hope everybody is well. I would like to be able to say it's a beautiful sunny early spring day here in the Cotswolds today, but I pride myself on being an honest person, so I'm not going to tell you that. Actually, it is pretty bright at the moment. This is pretty much as bright as it's been all day. When we set out this morning, it was foggy. As we drove down, it got worse, and then it started to rain, and then it got a little bit brighter around lunchtime. But it is, at least now it's dry. There is kind of a bit of light in the sky, and you know, so we're still going to be able to enjoy it, and we'll be able to see things, which is good. The fog this morning, as I was going down and over some of the hills as we came up into the Cotswolds, because I came down this morning and checked out a new place that I'm going to be doing the next time we have a community funded Cotswold tour. I've been today to check out the place that we're going to go, so I'm really pleased to do that. Actually, it'll be the next but one, because I alternate a new place with places we've been before. But the next new place, following this one in Northleach, we will be very much heading down where I went today. Hello Emma, nice to see you. People were just asking about you. I hope you're okay, and I hope you're going to get a good enough signal to watch the tour today. I know you struggled a bit on Zoom the other day. Hopefully YouTube's a bit better. So yeah, I'm really pleased that everybody is here to have a look at a place that I've not brought you before in the Cotswolds. You know, there is so many different areas in the Cotswolds, and obviously there's the really kind of well-known ones where everybody kind of goes when they visit, but I think it's nice to go some different places as well. Beatrice has just put the link up for the wish list, which is where the next community funded tours are. We have two up at the moment, one for Cotswolds and one for a seaside visit, and tomorrow morning I will put up a new Cotswold one, which will be a place we've been before. So like I said, I alternate the Cotswold ones, so you can head to that wish list. If you want to donate to the community funded tours, please make sure when you go to buy me a coffee, you go to the wish list page and choose the one that you want to contribute to. If you just go on the normal page and buy me a coffee, I very much appreciate it, of course, but it doesn't go then into the fund where you're wanting to put it. So make sure you go to the wish list page and select the community funded tours over there. So anyway, let's make a start, shall we, because it's 4:01. So I'm going to say a huge warm welcome to all of you today to this tour in the Cotswolds in the town of Northleach, which is a new place for us on our virtual tours. And this is a community funded tour, which means you people have been very generously contributing to fill up the pot so that I can come and do the tour, and that it will then be available for anyone to watch it. So I really enjoy doing these tours, and I think the system that we've got going there is really working well, and we're getting some great tours from it. So thank you again to everyone who contributed to this one, and a warm welcome. So where are we? Well, we're in Northleach. Northleach is a little market town in the Cotswolds. It has about 2,000 inhabitants. It's not one of the Cotswolds' major visitor centres, but it has an awful lot of history and was once a very prosperous place, as many places in the Cotswolds were, because of the medieval agricultural strength of the area, particularly the wool trade. And Northleach was a major wool trading centre. It is located close to the meeting point of two of the most important kind of routes through the area, the old Roman Fosse Way and the main east to west route that runs from London, Oxford, through the Cotswolds to Worcester and into Wales. So it's on a really important location, and so a real kind of good point where wool from all of the sheep that are being farmed in the Cotswolds can be brought together to be bought and sold and transported. So let me turn around my camera, make sure I use the right one. And you can see we're in quite a sort of a modern part of the town here, but you can see we are, as always in the Cotswolds, never too far from the hills. You're never too far from the green fields and farming land. And we are starting at East End. So the main street through the town, this part of the town, the main street is called here East End, and then it becomes Main Street, and then it becomes West End. And we're starting with this very large and imposing institutional building. And imposing is definitely the word, because this was the workhouse for Northleach and the district. Now, a workhouse was part of the provision that was made for the poorest people in society, to make sure you didn't just have kind of too many people just starving, in the towns and cities around the country. But a workhouse was, up until the early 20th century really, a workhouse was a publicly provided place where the very poor people were able to get a roof over their head. They were given kind of basic food, and in return they had to do, it's called a workhouse. They had the pretty painstaking, pretty hard labour in return for what they were given. The idea really was that it was a place where you would only go into if you really needed it. It wasn't a place where you could think, oh, we've not got much money, let's go in the workhouse, that'll be nice, we'll get a roof over our head, get fed, do a bit of work, and then we'll be out again. The idea was that the work was hard, the conditions were pretty stringent, and you would only go in there if you needed to. Now, they were run on a sort of a parish level, so the parishes, based on where the medieval churches were, ran the workhouses. And This particular workhouse was for the Northleach and the surrounding district. So Northleach was kind of the market town, and there's all the surrounding villages as well. And it could hold up to 200 inmates or residents. I think they were called inmates. And it was a workhouse throughout the 19th century into the early 20th. In 1920 it became a hospital, and it was a hospital up until the late 1980s, and now it is a private old people's care home. What we see here is one section of it. There are two or three other large sections. So pretty much the entire building is devoted to being the care home, except for the old workhouse and hospital chapel. And the chapel is now a holiday rental apartment. Quite an interesting place you can go and stay. You know, I went in the workhouse, and so I'm not wanting to put a downer on your Sunday afternoon. Of course, I'm trying to, but I'm showing you what's here, but also the little kind of leaflet that the town publish about what they've got here. We started our tour by the workhouse. We're going to be finishing it by a prison, and the town's kind of leaflet said the town has destitution at one end at the workhouse and restitution, where people are paying their debt to society, at the other end in the prison. And we're going to be seeing what there is in between those things. Okay, so let's go and take a look along this main road. It was a town that was planned. So between the 11th and 13th centuries, a lot of new towns sprang up around England, particularly along major roads. Landowners, the big landowners, the monasteries, the churches, some of the big nobility, the big landowners, they realised they could make money, because what everybody wanted really was a situation where everyone could, within one day's travel, go to market to buy and sell their goods. And so to help with that, a lot of new towns sprang up, and what they would do, you've got the main road going through, and the land that was all owned around it, they would parcel it off and rent it. And the land here belonged to Gloucester Abbey, which is now Gloucester Cathedral, one of the biggest landowners in this area. And they established this town here. There was a previous settlement, but this was kind of a new planned town. But it grew up later, you know, on the wealth of the wool trade, and some of those very wealthy wool merchants invested money in the town, as we see around the place. And this is one of the things that they tended to invest in: almshouses, homes for poorer or retired people. In this case, Dutton's almshouses. Thomas Dutton, he was one of the wealthy wool merchants, and he founded these almshouses in the early 17th century. And initially they were for women. They were for deserving women of the parish of good character. They had 2 rooms and then a little garden. And they also received a weekly allowance towards their living costs. And it was just women all the way through until 1820, when men were also permitted. Now, I don't know quite why that might have been. I think one of the reasons was probably the date 1820, after the end of the Napoleonic Wars. There were a lot of former soldiers who were perhaps wounded and unable to work anymore, and they were relying on kind of charitable institutions, really, and that would be approximately right. So probably it meant that, you know, because there were a lot of needy people, former soldiers after the Napoleonic Wars, that they started to allow men into the almshouses. These days, still retirement cottages. Beautiful, aren't they? I don't know how you qualify for one, 5 for 1. You have to be a woman of the parish, of good character. I'm saying nothing about any of you lovely people. Now, ooh. So it was a new town laid out along the main road here, with plots of land. So the idea is that they would parcel up the plots of land on the main street, and they would then rent them out. The idea is to encourage people, particularly artisans, people producing things with a trade, to come and live in their new town, to trade in their markets. And if you come and rent one of the plots here, where you can have your house, you can have space for growing a few things out the back, keeping a bit of livestock, space for your trade. If you are a citizen who's paying your rents to the landholder, you can then trade in the market. You're entitled to trade in the local market. And then if people who are coming into the town to the market from outside, they pay a market toll to be able to do that. So the landowner's making money either way, but you know, if you're living here, you're able to live here, to trade, to have everything there. And new towns. They were called new towns. Sometimes they're called seeded towns, S-E-E-D-E-D, because they were almost like planting them, seeding them, by making this land available for rental. Oh, here we are, look. There's an original name here. The old house. I suspect that any of them could be called that, you know, along here. Parking halfway on the road. Yeah, well, it's kind of quite a normal thing, I guess, just to give a little bit more space to pass both ways in the narrow streets. It does. It's okay here because they've got very wide walkways. It's sometimes in the bigger towns where you don't have very big, very wide spaces. It can be really difficult for people, you know, people who are disabled. And I know our friend Nikki, who's blind, she has a lot of trouble with cars parked on the place she needs to walk, because obviously she can't see that they're there. Now across the way, one of several buildings that was once an inn. You can see the archway there would have led through pubs, but 200 carriages, because what is now the road through the town, which is, you know, it's not that busy, serves local needs, but until the 1980s this road here was the main A40. This was the main road, the main route, the A40 that goes from London, Oxford, through the Cotswolds, past Cheltenham, Gloucester, in towards Wales. It's only in the 1980s, when they made a modern bypass road, that this became just a quiet main street of the town. And back in the 18th and early 19th centuries, when this was the main road, this was where the coaches wanted to stop as they made their way along that important route. So there were numerous coaching inns, and it helped to keep the town prosperous and thriving after the decline of the wool trade, because the wool trade, which had been the linchpin of the national economy in the medieval times, and particularly here in the Cotswolds, the local economy, that started to decline from the 17th, 18th century, and to continue. House here, it's of the wool trade. Cities on the too. It's all to do with the wool trade. Trying to get somewhere a little bit more signal wise. No, this is not good. Bit of weather conditions, I think. Yeah, I think it's just that little bit with the more dense houses. No, it's not going to be good here. No, I'm really losing a lot of signal here. So I'm going to try and press on and see what happens. So what I'm going to do is go down here try to get somewhere a bit more open. Yeah, this looks better. Yeah, this looks like we're going back up. I know, what a lovely little name for a street, Tish, the Peep. I don't know why it's called that. Maybe because you can have a little peep, or, well, I don't think I'll get a signal, well, a bit like here. I know I always say into a space that is called the Green. It's not very green these days, but I guess would once have been a green space in the centre of town. And we have a beautiful timber frame building. Look at this. This building is known as Tudor House. Dates back to the Tudor age, the late 15th century. And the house was built as the home of one of the F-O-R-T-E. This, where the timber framing is, was originally one of the many inns here in the centre of town, and now it is divided up into a butcher there. That's what you can get from. So let's Elizabeth, do you want to live in there, in the Tudor house? Oh, I know you do. Now I'm hoping that my signal will pick up a little bit along here, because we're a little bit out of the main. Oop. Well, go round me then, you got steering wheel, haven't you? So we're in actually the oldest part of town here. This part of town is called Mill End. Absolutely rubbing lovely blossoms on the tree. This part of town is known as Mill End. There were several mills in medieval times in the town, and this was the original Anglo-Saxon settlement. But when that new town was created, it was created on the other side of the local river, which is called the Leach. In fact, it was created to the north of the Leach, hence the name of the town, Northleach. This building was the last mill. This mill was in operation until the early 20th century with of water and steam power. And now private home. Lovely living in the old mill. Ooh. Okay, so here's the little waterway. Lovely little bridge here, and this leads us to the church, to the parish church of Northleach. One of what we call the wool churches, because it's entirely thanks to the Cotswold wool trade that these churches were built, and the reason that they are so lavishly designed and decorated. This church, as we see it today, dates back mainly much longer than that, but we're not sure exactly what it looked like, because it was almost entirely rebuilt in the 15th century, largely due to the wealth of the man whose house we saw before. So the man who lived in Tudor House, John 40, his tomb is within the church. There's lovely memorial brasses to him and his wife within the church, and it was for the town. Oh, they finished a bit of work that they were doing from when I came here a couple of weeks ago to plan this tour, because they were having the dry stone wall here. One of the most common things in the Cotswolds, dry stone wall, one of the great traditional trades. And here you can see you've got the old wall, could be several hundred years old, but then you're seamlessly into the brand new stone. Now, when I came down here a couple of weeks ago to plan this route out, all that stone, there was a gap there. All that stone was here, piled, waiting to be put into the wall, to re-complete that wall. No cement, nothing to stick the wall together. It is entirely the interlocking of the stones and the skill and experience and expertise of the wall builder that creates these walls that will stand for hundreds of years if they are properly maintained. And it is a great that they are. One of the things that the Prince's Trust, so the charity that was set up by the King when he was Prince Charles, one of the things that the Prince's Trust does is to invest in providing apprenticeships in traditional crafts, things like thatching and dry stone walling, so that there are still people around to try to bring younger people through into these trades. And it is really beautiful that they're able to do it. Yeah, the gravestone is leaning a little bit. Who is it? Margaret, the beloved wife of William Scarrett, died in 1885. Oh. The church is a beautiful one, and reflecting the wealth. It's not lavishly decorated on the interior. It's like I think a lot of, obviously it would have been up until the Reformation, but it's not as lavishly decorated as some that you do find still around Cotswolds. And the snowdrops have gone already. They were here, but we're starting to get the spring flowers coming. We're starting to get the daffodils and the crocuses. Crocuses? Yeah, crocuses. It's not croci. Crocuses. But I love these old atmospheric cemeteries, and the church here is beautiful. Very sort of latest architectural style for the time it was built, 15th century. It's called perpendicular Gothic is the style of architecture that they're using in this particular church. And you know, it's amazing to think really that these wool merchants could have been so wealthy as to finance the construction of such beautiful buildings as this church. Leslie, yes, you're right, it is. And obviously the problem that these churches have is finance. You know, they need to replace the roof, they need to do various, you know, restoration work and ongoing maintenance, and it's very, very hard because you know, they don't have much of a congregation these days because it's a small town, B, like everywhere, the congregations have been dwindling. Oh, here come the half-hour bells. They probably have a service coming up shortly. Leslie, the wool barons funded the kings. They absolutely did, yes. Some of them were wealthier than the kings. And a lot of them would have been, you know, they were the wealthy people. That if the kings needed a bit of money, it was people like the wool merchants, the monasteries, the abbots of the great monasteries. You know, that's who they're going to for loans. That's who they're going to for some finance. Now, of course, in modern times, political leaders would never get involved with the very wealthy people and taking their money from them in return for any kind of influence on their government. You know, but back then, things were very different. He says tongue firmly in cheek. There's a beautiful view of the church here. Here's some beautiful daffodils. Look at those. I mean, lovely in the cemetery here. And it's a lovely spot. When we came a couple of weeks ago and we planned it, Sally Jane and I, it was a very lovely sunny day actually, and we ate our lunch on the green bench there in the churchyard. It's absolutely lovely it was. So let us. Tricia, your daffodils aren't even in bud. Wow. No, ours are starting to do quite well at home. So I said we were going to. I'm going to walk through here first. We're going to finish at a prison. This is not, you know, where any miscreants, anybody causing trouble within the town would have been thrown, pending an appearance before the justice. It's also where they would have kept the stocks. So, you know, the stocks where they're going to put the people's arms or legs through them, and they're going to be on public display for their crimes on usually on market day, because that's when everybody's going to see that justice has been done. And it would have been generally on market day, probably when people were going to end up in the lockup, you know, because that's when there's likely to be disagreements, there's likely to be incidents, it's when the town is at its busiest. And that's why a lot of these or where they would hold any miscreants until they can get them in front of the magistrate. Tina, they don't have regular markets here anymore. From time to time they do here on the marketplace. The marketplace here is triangular in shape. That's quite for the planned market towns. Lovely. I don't know what my. Very strange. It's bouncing up and down all over the place. I can't really get a good reading, but we've got a lovely thing in the town centre here in the market square to remind us that Northleach was granted its market charter in the year 1227. It was actually the landowners, which was Gloucester Abbey, that was responsible for getting that market charter. And you see that the lovely sheep in the middle, reminding us of the most important product. Cross keys on the left. It was St. Peter's was the name of the abbey, and is the name of Gloucester Cathedral to this day. So the cross keys representing St. Peter, and on the right the crown base. You know, they're stone buildings, but a lot of them, if you were to strip away a couple of, I'm not suggesting people should necessarily get your scaffolding up first, but if you were to strip away a couple of layers of stone, you would find a much older timber frame building underneath. Back to around the 15th, 16th century, and were then, as tastes want to have a later, of course, May. So here's the town's war memorial. Some beautiful flowers coming into bloom, and yes, Leslie, won't it just on the front of the houses? It will look great. This is the war memorial. Now there's no apostrophe in doctors, so I don't know whether there was a whole bunch of doctors lived up there, or just one. I suspect the latter. I can't see it having been a place where there would have been numerous doctors. And here's a building called Walton. This was one of the buildings that was altered, restored and altered in the 19th century. It was originally, along with the building on the far side of the sort of a gap between them where the stables used to be, was a huge complex that was one of the biggest coaching inn complexes within the town. Walton House is now, but it does have a little plaque on the side to tell us that during a hotel, and the Cotswolds was an area where there were a number of very important air bases during that time. Still, some have left. RAF Fairford, RAF Bryce North, places like that. There were a lot of places around. Over the Channel and to continental Europe. Tina, any known haunted inns or pubs? Not to my knowledge. I'm sure that a lot of these old buildings have got strange stories associated with them, but I'm not, unfortunately, familiar with them. Okay, so I'm trying to get along the road here. We've got another of the timber framed buildings here, still surviving. Used to be the King's Head. Yes, I did. Fairford's a big one, Bryce Norton's a big one, but there were loads of others back in the day as well. and it was originally called the Northleach Institute. It was a adult education classes, clubs of century clock, doesn't it, on the side of it there. And the things are here, because you'll find that there's Antelope Annex, Antelope Corner, Antelope House. Now, when we talk about the trades that there are in the Cotswolds, we tend to talk about the wool trade. We don't talk about the antelope trade. There wasn't any antelopes here. There was a pub called the Antelope that was on this spot. One of the coaching inns in North. We're making our way along, and across the way there's the local fire station. And you know, you don't tend to see so many fire stations often in small towns. You know, you tend to think of them probably being in the larger towns and cities. And but this one, I suppose it makes good sense to have one here, because of it, the settlement doesn't merit probably having a fire station there. Actually, to have the fire station here, serving quite a wide section of the Cotswold area and the county of Gloucestershire. Oh, a road there called Midwinter Road. Let's hope that's... I wonder if it changes. Now, this is a complex of buildings. It's got some commercial buildings, like a commercial laundry, and various places within it, and some apartments as well. It was originally, this whole complex was a big brewery. It used to have a big chimney until the 1950s. There's a brewery called Taylor's Brewery, which was originally founded in the 19th century, and at one time they had about 20 pubs that belonged to the brewery, a couple within the town of Northleach and all over, you know, the surrounding area as well. So the Taylor's Brewery, but Taylor's Brewery went bust, or at least got taken over by a bigger company in the 1930s, and then the site became was divided up into other businesses and other uses. Robin, no beer for me. No, absolutely. I've got to drive home, so definitely not. So we've come to kind of the end of the town. So I said we started at East End. We went on Main Street through past the marketplace, and we are now at West End. Well, not like the West End in London with all the theatres and everything like that. This is the West End of Northleach, but this is where we see really why Northleach was such a good location. So the road through the village or through the town used to be the main road. Up on top of the hill ahead of us, that is where the modern, I mean, you might see the odd car or truck or something going past, probably be none now I've said it, but that's where the main road is, the modern bypass road. and it was, the Fossway ran all the way through. There's an awful lot of Roman links here in the Cotswolds. Just a few miles down the Fossway there's the site of a fantastic Roman villa called Chedworth Villa, and they have some amazing intact 3rd century Roman mosaics from the bathhouse and from the internal rooms of the villa. Absolutely incredible that they are such beautiful workmanship and still in such good condition. So, you know, really prosperous part of Roman Britain. Halfway to the British Seaside Tour. Cool, thank you. Leslie, you've been to Chedworth? Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I'll try to put a couple of the pictures up on the Facebook group. But there's one more thing I want to show you about here that Northleach is actually quite known for before we finish, and I do apologise for the signal. I don't think it's so much to do with the buildings, because I tested kind of what it was like when I came down here, but I think it's more to do with the overhead conditions, to be honest. It's not great. It's very, very low cloud, it's very humid, and I think it's probably to do with that. But this is the old prison. So Northleach is actually known for the prison, and this is what's left of the prison. Now the prison dates back to the 1780s, and it was opened following a new Act of Parliament in 1779, in which the prisons in England were reformed, and because the conditions were so terrible for the inmates. I mean, I know they were criminals, people who committed crimes, but you know, you still have to have some kind of humane treatment. And every county in England was responsible for creating new or improving the existing prisons. Now here in Gloucestershire, the High Sheriff of Gloucestershire, an important political position, was a man with a wonderful name. His name was Sir George Onesiphorus Paul. George Onesiphorus Paul. I love that name. And George Onesiphorus Paul was responsible for building some new prisons in Gloucester. And he decided that here at the junction of these main routes through the area would be a great place to have a prison. And so this prison at Northleach was built. And it took on board the recommendations and the rules from the new Prisons Reformed Act. And so things like having high walls around the entire complex. And what that meant was that prisoners could kind of walk around outside in the yard. They could be given exercise. Previously they'd just been chained up. You didn't have to keep your prisoners chained if they can't get out of the prison. They kept them segregated depending on how serious the offences were that they committed, and they had slightly better living conditions, better food and so on. And it was a much more modern kind of prison with a central block where the prison administration was, and at the back of the central block they could see out over all of the site to keep a look at everything. And George Onesiphorus Paul was known as one of the big reformers of prisons in the late 18th century here in England. And nowadays, well, it's not a prison anymore, of course, because in 1857 they closed it as a main prison because transportation links had improved. So all of Gloucester's prisoners, by then you could stick them on a train and send them to Gloucester itself, which had the biggest prison in the county. And so this prison became kind of a sort of for short-term incarceration of local criminals, but it also became a courthouse and police station, which it remained until way into the 20th century. These days it's a museum. Parts of the prison have been restored. You can see some of the old cells, and they've got sort of information about what prison conditions were like. There's also a sort of a rural life collection out the back with farming equipment and farm vehicles and things, and a very nice cafe as well, and you can sit out the back in the exercise yard, which is much nicer, I'm sure, than it was when the prisoners were actually in there. And so yeah, very good place. I had a lovely coffee and chocolate orange brownie in there before the tour today. So we started today at the workhouse, as I said, destitution through to restitution, and in the middle we had the lovely market town, beautiful, such an impressive church, and lots of history, lots of wealth in the past going through Northleach. And I hope that despite some bits of desperation with regard to the signals, you've had a good time over the last hour, and you've enjoyed this community funded tour with me this afternoon. So once again, I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you so much for supporting me, not just with this tour, but with all of my tours. And do go to the wish list page. Do go to, if you you're able, every little contribution helps to bring that total up to what we want to get it to, so I can do the tours. And I will put another Cotswolds one up. It'll be an existing place, and they we will then, the next new Cotswold place, somebody mentioned it, I think it was Leslie who mentioned it. Thank you, Beatrice, for putting a link up to the wish list. That's the link you can hit to contribute to the community tours. The next new place I'm going to introduce you to in the Cotswolds, I think it was Leslie who mentioned it, is a place that had one of the RAF air bases, Fairford. Beautiful church there, and a lovely little town, and one or two really nice kind of more rural aspects to it as well. So we are going to be next but one community tour is going to be to Fairford, but we've got also all my upcoming tours. Beatrice has just put another link into the Padlet page where you can find all of my upcoming tours on various platforms. You can check out the catch-up links for the tours that we've done. And the next tour I've got is on Friday, which is the final one of our 4 places, our 4 tours in the beautiful city of Zurich. And in the next few days I will be putting up a couple of new tours going into April, hopefully another couple of live tours, and a couple of as lives as well for you. I'm off to Berlin again for a week in a little while. And I'm also taking a few days off in April, just at Easter time. But other than that, hoping to get some new tours on the calendar for you very soon. Thank you, Beatrice, for putting up the links so that everybody can find all the tours and the place they can support them. And hope to see you on Friday for Reformation and Revolution is the title of the next Zurich tour, and we're going to be talking about walking up hills headless. Sue's not on that one because we're going to be up the slight incline at the place where they walked to, and then decided, oh, walking along with my head under my arm, it's pretty tiring, I'm going to stop here. So thank you so much for all of you. Again, apologies for the dodgy signal in places. This is England, we can never rely on overhead conditions, especially when you're between these old buildings. You need the overhead conditions to be to play ball a little bit, to offset the kind of the signal blocking effect of the buildings. But thank you for bearing with me, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing Northleach with me today. Take care, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday, and I'll see you soon. Bye for now, everybody.